So you finally met your dad when you were 27?
Yes.
How did that feel?
Oh, scary, overwhelming, resolute, life-changing, and necessary. If I had to put it into 5 words. Yeah, it was all of those things encapsulated in one experience, and it changed my life forever. To this day, I do believe it's one of the best things I ever did.
Hello and welcome to Real Men Feel. I'm your host, Andy Grant, here to remind you once again that it is okay to be human. Today we're diving into self-worth, the father wound, and what it really means to create a life you're proud of. My guest is Kevin Palmieri, the founder and co-host of the Next Level University podcast. Kevin once had all the success he thought he wanted, yet it left him unfulfilled, even to the point of contemplating suicide. Since then, he's transformed his life, producing over 2,000 episodes, reaching listeners in 170 countries, and becoming a role model for men looking to grow beyond pain into purpose. He also carries a deeply personal story about growing up without his dad and finally meeting him as an adult. We'll explore that today. And before we jump in, if you're a man who's tired of going it alone, come join us in the free Authentic AF community at realmenfeel.org/group. Let's do it. Hello, Kevin, and welcome to Real Men Feel.
Andy, thank you so very much for having me. I'm excited to chat. It is a breath of fresh air on a Friday to jam with someone like you, my friend.
Awesome. Well, let's get to it. When we first spoke, you shared with me that you grew up without knowing your father. So I wonder, could you take us back to what life was like growing up without your dad?
Yeah, it's always hard because people say, what was it like? And I say it was normal. Because for me, that was normal. But one of the stories that really, I think, paints a very specific picture of how I felt, it was first grade, fourth grade, I don't know. I was young. And the first day of school, for some reason, you go around and you introduce yourself and you say, this is what my mom does for work. This is what my dad does for work. And my mom was in the medical field. And I remember thinking, I got to make something up for my dad. So I remember just making up construction worker. And I think what not having my dad around when I was younger did to me is it allowed me, unfortunately, to adopt imposter syndrome. Because I didn't want anybody to know that secret, because if somebody knew that secret, they might make fun of me, and I was made fun of at times, even though kids didn't really know what they were doing. So I always felt a sense of, 1, I'm different than everybody else. 2, I'm going to be broken because of this. And then 3, as I got into my maybe early teens, later teens, for some reason, my friends' families always tried to adopt me and bring me into their dinner parties and their trips and their vacations. So that was always a little weird for me, feeling kind of like a charity case, for lack of better phrasing.
It's funny, thinking back, I don't recall having that spin, but so my parents divorced when I was 5. And I was the adopted and pulled into dinners and vacations and things. And yeah, I just thought people liked me. So I didn't know. But,
Same.
cool.
Same.
But yeah, one thing that struck me just now, you said you knew you were broken. So there was something about dad being missing that made you think you were off, that was wrong somehow.
Yeah, I felt like everybody else has, I won't say positive male role models, because in retrospect, I don't know how positive they were, but I assumed I'm going to be the one who ends up being a loser. I'm going to be the one who ends up being a failure. I used to have a conversation with 2 of my best friends at the time, and we voted on who was most likely to end up in jail, and it was me. I was the one who was going to end up in trouble and end up in jail, because a lot of people in my family had gone to jail, and there was drug addiction and alcohol addiction. So I think it created an identity for me that I didn't realize I was adopting long before I was capable of knowing who I really was in the world, right? And I think that's a common thing. We look at our environment, and our environment in many cases dictates who we think we're supposed to be, and unfortunately that's what mine dictated to me.
Right, so you're raised by your mom and your grandmother. How do you think that shaped your view of masculinity and your own self-worth?
My mom is very masculine. One of my favorite stories of my mom ever is somebody spit at my grandmother at a bar, and my mom threw them over the bar and beat them up. And I love that. Shout out to my mom for that. So my mom is relatively masculine. There was not a lot of femininity in my household. So I think it helped me with a couple things. 1, there was no yelling, there was no screaming, there was no negativity, there was no violence. I had a pretty positive household, all things considered. So at least that was a model for me. But in terms of masculinity, I didn't really have any great constructive examples. I was close with my uncles, but they were funny and jokey and they didn't take almost anything seriously. So that never really attached to me as what you should be. I think I did what a lot of people did. I looked at movies and I looked at wrestlers, and that is who I thought I was supposed to be. I wanted to be a professional wrestler. I wanted to be a stuntman. So I think I wanted to convey or exude what confidence looked like on television. I thought that was masculinity. I think the problem is I was so focused on looking good and looking confident externally and not building actual self-belief and self-worth. And I think self-worth is being comfortable with who you are as a person. So I think for a lot of my life, I hid behind the fact that I was raised by my mom and my grandmother. I hid behind the fact that we had a 2-bedroom apartment, even though there was 3 of us. So the nights my mom didn't work third shift, she would sleep on the couch. That was just normal. And I think I tried to hide behind what normal was because I was afraid what people would think. And I think that massively affected my self-worth and my self-belief.
So you finally met your dad when you were 27?
Yes.
How did that feel?
Ooh. Oh, scary, overwhelming, resolute, life-changing, and necessary, if I had to put it into 5 words. Yeah, it was all of those things encapsulated in one experience, and it changed my life forever. To this day, I do believe it's one of the best things I ever did.
And was this something that, had you sought this out? Was this your creation? Was it circumstance, synchronicity?
It was a Saturday morning. I was off of work. I was sitting on my recliner, and I was going through my Facebook messages. And I didn't realize at the time, if somebody messages you and they're not friends with you, it goes to a special folder, a message request folder. Didn't know that. I was going through that folder, and I saw this message, and you can only see the first line. That's how they get you. Hey, Kevin, I'm Robin. I'm your father's girlfriend. And I was like, no, not today. It's Saturday. I got plans later. This is not going to derail my day. But I got curious. I got very, very curious. So I opened it up. Hey, Kevin, I'm Robin. I'm your father's girlfriend. And he's been seeing you on Facebook. It looks like you're doing really well. If you'd ever want the opportunity to meet, he would really enjoy that. And here's the thing that really messed me up. The message was from 3 years prior. So I didn't even know if he was still alive. I didn't know if they were together. I didn't know any of the circumstances. But I remember I threw my phone on the floor. I fell on the floor. I started bawling my eyes out. And I texted one of my friends and I said, hey, my dad messaged me and he wants to see me. And they said, are you going to do it? And I said, I think I have to. I know I have to. I don't want to, but I think this is the thing that I need to do. And they said, do you want me to come with you? And I said, I appreciate it, but this is one of those things I just have to do on my own. So it was very much accidental. It was very much coincidence that I was going through. Realistically, if I didn't find that message, I never would have met my dad because he didn't have my phone number. He didn't know where I lived. I didn't even know what he looked like. I didn't even know his real name. So I was never going to find him. So it was very coincidental, and it happened at a time in my life where I was very hungry for growth. And I was very hungry for evolution and awareness. So it all lined up. Yeah, it all lined up really nicely. So I messaged them back and said, yeah, let's do it. Let's meet halfway. And a couple of weeks later, that was the plan.
So you didn't even know his name. So your parents were never married. Did your dad know that you existed when you were born?
He knew that, he knew that I existed, but he was very much, from what I've gathered over the years. You ever seen the movie Liar, Liar? With Jim Carrey? It was very much that. He would say he was going to come get me. He never would. He would say he was going to show up. He never would. He just never was there, and there was no improvement in that. And I also believe he was in a motorcycle gang, and he was heavy into drugs and alcohol, so there was a lot going on at that time. So yeah, never married. I was definitely an accident, and I don't think there was much plan beyond what happens when this child is born, and that's ended up being what happened after I was born, yeah.
So you do connect. Have you stayed in contact since then, or was it just a one meeting and done?
So I drive down to this diner. He meets me, and I remember I got there first. I sat down at the booth looking out towards the window, and I remember thinking, I don't know what he looks like. So when he gets here, he's going to have to find me, and this is going to be even more awkward than I realized. Some guy walks by the window. Somehow I knew. I don't know how to explain it. It was just one of those knowings. That's my dad. Came in, found me, sat down. I was stoic. I was locked up. You're not going to get any emotion out of me. He was crying a couple times, and it was interesting. It was a very interesting moment for me. Apologizing, us catching up, and trying to essentially collapse 27 years into 27 minutes. But I had a moment where I looked across the table, and I felt bad for him. I felt bad because I had done more work in my 27 years than he had done in his 60. That was one thing. The second thing is I think I was able to depersonalize it for the first time ever, where I realized he didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to try to mess this kid's life up. He had his own stuff going on. And do I think I would have done better? I like to think so. And I also can have empathy for the fact that he didn't. And then I think it gave me forgiveness. Like, okay, this is something I never thought I was going to do. I'm checking this off the bucket list. I want to be open to forgiveness, not necessarily for him, but for me. I've made him this villain in my head, and he can't even handle the power, so I shouldn't give it to him. So I ended up seeing him a couple times after. And it got to this weird place where he would just call me randomly on a Thursday and get mad if I didn't answer the phone, even though I'm out here doing this and I'm building the business, right? I'm not exactly the type of person you can just call on a whim. I don't answer my phone. It's always on silent. That became resistance. He could never understand why I didn't have time to go see him. That became resistance. And eventually, one day I posted a picture on Facebook of my wife and I, and he commented, "You got to lose the mustache." That was it. Not, "Oh my goodness, you and your beautiful wife," not, "I'm proud of you," not, "I'm so proud of what you've created. You got to lose the mustache." And that for me was like, okay, I can't do this. I cannot father my father. I'm not willing to sign up for that. So yeah, I decided essentially to just let it die. I feel like I got what I needed. I hope he got the closure that he needed. I don't want to lead him on. I don't want to do what he did to me. And honestly, I think I'm better off knowing what I know and not having the person in my life. So I haven't talked to him in, I don't know, probably 4 years now, maybe 4 or 5 years.
At that initial meeting, you said that you were consciously stoic. You weren't going to give him any emotion. Was that just another layer of defense? This man had hurt you enough, you weren't going to let it happen here?
Yeah, it was, I don't think you deserve it. Yeah, I don't think you deserve it. I don't think you deserve it. And I can't just allow 27 years to dissolve that quickly. It was ego. It was a protector. It was what I thought I needed to do in order to actually get through the interaction. So yeah, I didn't want to be emotional. I didn't want him to know how badly I was hurt. I didn't want him to know how much that affected my life. I didn't want him to know the truth, I think. I didn't want him to know the truth. And I wonder if I was emotional, if he would have been emotional. I don't know. But yeah, it's weird when you imagine someone for so long, and then you get to see them and you realize they are nothing like you thought they were going to be. So I went in with an emotion, and I went in with an intention, and I think I just held on to that, probably for my safety more than anything. Yeah, I think you're accurate there.
How has your relationship, or lack thereof, and the meeting, how has that altered or created your view of yourself as a man?
I am so proud of who I've become. I'm so proud of who I've become, just because there was a lot of reasons, there was a lot of circumstances, and there was a lot of really easy paths I could have taken that would have ended up in any direction but the one I'm in. One, it allowed me to realize that I think I'm a better man because my dad wasn't around. Honestly, as heavy as that is to say, I don't think having a male role model around would have been better than not having one around based on what I saw. And I think it's allowed me to understand certain intricacies about myself and understand why I am the way I am in certain ways, and help me understand that I actually can work through them. Well, it's interesting. My wife said this to me today. She said, I don't think you give yourself enough credit for how for most of your life you thought you were dumb and you were useless. And now like you're extremely smart and you can essentially figure almost anything out. And I said, I appreciate that. What a wonderful message to get first thing in the morning. I said, I appreciate that so very much. So yeah, I'm very proud of the person I am. And I think through that, I've been able to be very proud of what I've had the opportunity and the privilege to be a part of creating. But there's still a dark side of me that I go, like when I'm at the gym, I imagine my dad not believing in me. I go to dark places when I need to get stuff done. So there's the flowers on one side and there's the darkness on the other that I don't ever want to lose that. I think I have such a heavy chip on my shoulder from not having a dad around and feeling like he didn't believe in me. I want to make sure I run the chip and the chip doesn't run me, but I'm still leveraging that. To this day, I mean, I worked 16 hours yesterday. If that chip was not there, I just don't believe I'd be the man I am. So taking the good with the bad, and I'm very proud of what I've been able to create from the bad, I would say.
Cool. Yeah. So it's growing up with a physically or emotionally distant dad is often called the father wound, how that impact it has on us. And it can be the chip that drives you and turns you into being a successful, well-driven man focused on your own growth and evolution. But it also is a chip that crushes some guys too. So I'm really, I want to commend you along with your wife for how you worked with what you were given. So
I appreciate it. Well, again, we're in a silo, right? If you asked me 7 years ago how I felt, it would not be nearly as complete and or evolved as it is today. So a lot of it has just been time, reflection, awareness, necessity, right? So it is a very complicated equation to overcome something like that. And I think the equation is different for everybody, but I do very much appreciate the love, very much.
So in your 20s, you had all the trappings of success, but then I know you had, I'll let you share it. What kind of was the rock bottom or the breaking point for you when you seemingly had success?
Yeah, so when I was 25, I had a very close to it was a six-figure potential income. We were on contracts with the government and the state, so it depended on how much I worked. But there was definitely a track to get to six figures. My girlfriend at the time was a model. I was getting ready to compete in a bodybuilding show, so I was quite literally in the best shape I will ever be. I'll never be in that shape again. We had just moved into a really nice apartment together. I had a nice car. I had great friends. I was, from all external views, I was living the dream. I was crushing it. But internally, I was depressed. I was anxious. I had self-doubt. I had no self-worth. I felt terrible about myself. My initial rock bottom moment, my girlfriend sat me down one time. This was after my bodybuilding show, and I was struggling bad after my bodybuilding show. She said, "Hey, I'm leaving. You're just not the man that I fell in love with, and I feel like you're not the man that can help support me in my goals and my dreams and my ambitions." And she was right, unfortunately. And the thing that really helped me figure out where I was is she said, "I was going to leave a month or two ago, but I was genuinely afraid if I did, you might commit suicide." And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, how did we get here? How did it get to this point? So that was my initial rock bottom. She left, work got slow, so I was struggling financially and my bills had just doubled. And I had an eating disorder from my bodybuilding show. So in the beginning, it looked like I had health, wealth, and love. Behind the scenes, I was unhealthy as you could be, I was as single and lonely as you could be, and I was struggling financially. Naturally, I think the male side of me said, I'm just going to go make a boatload of money. Let me grind my face off and I'll work myself out of this hole. So that next year, I got a promotion at my job. We proceeded to have the busiest year we ever had. And I spent 10 months living on the road, traveling up and down the East Coast of the US for my job. Monday through Friday, I'm on the road. I get home either late Friday night, early Saturday. Clothes come out of the suitcase, into the washer, into the dryer, back into the suitcase. That's my life for the year. We get to the end of the year though, Andy. I crack open that final pay stub. I made $100,000 at 26 with no college degree. Externally, feels really good. Internally, nothing shifted. So I remember thinking for most of my life, I've lived unconsciously. The opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious. I'm going to start a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast. That's what any young man would do at this point in his life. Let's start a podcast. So started a podcast. I fell in love with podcasting. And very quickly, I learned that this job is not what I want to do. I know money is not the only answer. I'm now checked out completely, almost overnight. So I start calling out, showing up late, leaving job sites early. I don't care anymore. But as you know, there's not a line out the door of people saying, hey, this podcast is a great idea. How much money do you need? How much money can we give you so you can do it full time? So I had to keep going to this job. And my anxiety came back and it was getting worse. My depression came back and it was getting worse. And eventually I found out that rock bottom has a basement. I woke up in a hotel room in New Jersey. Alarm clock went off at 5:30. I sat up, slid to the edge of the bed, lacing up my work boots. And the best way to explain it is there was 10 televisions on in my head at the same time, and every single one was on a different station. And one is saying you're stuck here forever. I was the gas station guy. I was the guy who cleaned bathrooms at hospitals. I was the guy who just never could find a way to make good money. Felt like I got lucky getting this job. I'm never going to get this again. If I ever left, what would my friends say? I make so much money compared to my friends who all have degrees and went to college and I didn't. So there's significance there. What's my family going to say? I remember how highly my mom would talk about me to the people at work, and she used to take my car to work at times because I had such a nice car. And do you really think you're going to be a podcaster? And that was the loudest one. Do you really think you're going to be a podcaster? There's no way this works. So in my mind, I thought to myself, well, if I was just to take my life, I would take my problems with me. And that was the rock bottom, sitting on the edge of the bed moment where I didn't think there was anything else to do. Now, luckily, I have positive men in my life. Luckily. So I messaged one. And he's my business partner now, the co-host of the show. So it's worked out quite well, I would say. And I said, hey, I'm having these thoughts. I'm having these feelings. I'm having these emotions. I don't know what to do, man. And he said a lot, but the thing I remember was over the last couple of years, your awareness has changed a ton, but your environments have remained the same. So that was like the belief I needed. I borrowed his belief. I borrowed his worth. And I ended up leaving that job 3 or 4 months later, I think. Him and I partnered up in 2018, and we tried to figure out how to do this podcast thing full time. So that rock bottom moment became so much of the fuel for even starting and leaning into this and getting to the place that we are today. But yeah, it was a really, really challenging time in my life for sure. Now, very honestly, life got harder after I left my job because I lost all of my money and I was anxious and having panic attacks and it was this whole thing. But sometimes it's got to get worse before it gets better.
Why do you think that so many men have to hit rock bottom? Like, it can't be, I don't like this, so I'm going to change it. It has to be like, I am facing my self-inflicted demise if I don't change things. Why did it have to get so bad for you to make that change?
Sometimes your ego has to die before you're willing to do things that require humility, right? And I think for me, I was living in such a place of ego significance that I could not imagine my life without the external accomplishments that I had. We call it the Pain-Pleasure Pendulum. When you swing all the way to heck no, you're more likely to swing to heck yes. And the example I always use is, let's say Monday morning you go to work and it's the worst day you've ever had at work. One of two things happens. You say, screw this, I'm out, I'm going to start looking for other jobs. Or you go in Tuesday and it gets a little bit better. And then Wednesday, hump day. Thursday's Friday Junior. And then Friday's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you work off some steam. Monday, you're back. The moment has passed. The necessity has passed. The pain has passed. I think that's why pain is such a powerful motivator. When you get to a place where you are so deep in pain that you know it won't pass, you know you have to do something differently. So I think, and I don't think that's just for men, I think that's for humans in general. I think men are probably statistically more stubborn, so it takes more. But I think when you're in a really dark place, you're willing to look for light that you hadn't been willing to in the past. And I really think it's just because pain is the best motivator and the best necessity. And I think as men, we think we're supposed to handle all of the pain and we're capable of taking it and just continuing on. That's for you to decide out there, whether you're watching or listening. But yeah, I think that's why. I think, unfortunately, discomfort, resistance, pain are required to change because they're what creates necessity in the first place. If it's just okay, I'm probably not going to do anything about it, right? It just doesn't make any sense.
Has your own definition of self-worth changed from your 20s to today?
I think in my mind, self-worth used to be delusional. So I know my value and I know what I'm worth and I'm never going to be around people that don't value that worth. I think that's a good direction to move in, but I think I thought accurate self-worth was arrogance. When I think accurate self-worth for me is humility. I'm a very valuable man. Awesome. I can add value in many situations. Awesome. And I have a lot of work to do in many arenas. I think that's accurate self-worth. Self-worth is understanding the value of you as a human being. And I think we are either delusionally high or delusionally low. I don't think anybody's really accurate. I'm not accurate. I'm probably a little bit over. I'm probably a little bit delusionally high right now because things are going really well. So I think I thought it was arrogance, and I think I thought it was believing in my own unique capabilities in the external world. Now I know it's just being able to set a boundary and hold it. Being able to hold my emotional space when somebody is trying to take it. It's way more internal than I thought. I thought self-worth and self-belief were the same thing. I thought they were external and people could see them. Now I understand self-worth is way more about a feeling than it is what anybody sees. And also, it's way easier to just punt it and abandon it than it is to hold it. Holding self-worth in a moment is scary. It's very, very, very scary. And you're the only one that can really do that work, and you're the only one that really knows whether or not it's happening. So yeah, my definition has changed a ton, but I think it's really hard to define something you don't have yet, right? It's easy to say this is what it is until you realize, oh, okay. No, this is actually what it feels like when you have it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, until you have your experience, you're just guessing. Like,
Pretty much.
Is this good feeling? Is this going fast in this car? Is this self-worth? Is this what it is? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, if it feels like it's going in the right direction, we think we're doing it right. So if you go from just self-deprecation to arrogant, it feels like it's progress. It is progress. You're moving in the right direction. You just have gone past the optimal point, right? And I think that is life in general. I think life is a constant pendulum between under and over. I used to be somebody who spent way too much money on dumb stuff. I was way over. Now I'm struggling to buy things I need because I'm so focused on saving money. I'm under now. There's an optimal point for all of us, self-belief, self-worth, all of that stuff. And I just think it takes time, experience, and reflection to get there. And I had very little time, very little experience, and very, very little reflection in my mid-20s for sure.
So Kevin, with over 2,000 episodes of your Next Level University podcast, is there a most surprising thing you have learned about men and self-worth from your guests?
That's a great question. Some of the people who have the most healthy self-worth are the ones who have gone through the most hell to get there. There's a gentleman, his name's Anthony Trucks, and he's played in the NFL, American Ninja Warrior, spoken on some of the biggest stages in the world, and he's just a good dude. Just a good dude. But when you hear his story about how he got bounced around from foster home to foster home, at one point I'm pretty sure he had to catch chickens in the backyard in order to eat, was put in a dog kennel, had to lick the bottom of people's shoes until his tongue bled. I mean, he had to overcome so much to become a positive, healthy man. I think there's something about that. There's something about having to overcome in order to get to the place that you want. So, necessity. Yeah, I don't know if anybody just wakes up one day and says, I want to be a really good person. I don't know if it really works that way. I think something has to happen that shakes you to the core and you say, I don't want to live like this. And the way I'm living, if I continue at this trajectory, I'm in a lot of trouble. I have to change like everything and I have to work through everything. So sometimes the most resistance creates the highest quality human. I would say that's been something. And then I would say this is an interesting thing too. I was thinking of this the other day. There's a lot of people out there that say like bro code. You know, what happens amongst bros stays amongst bros. I think that's a sad excuse to just live in arrogance and live in ego. We've had guests on the podcast in the past who we never released the episodes because they're surrounded by people that make their behavior okay. And those are not my people. I do not want you in my life. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to spend any time with you. It helped me really identify who the people I wanted to be around with, who my people are, and who the people I'm just not interested in spending time with, regardless of how much quicker that would help me be successful. That. A lot of people, unfortunately, and especially, no, I won't even say especially men and women, are way more focused on being externally successful than character-driven internally. And that is something that jumped off the page. You won't know who it is because those episodes didn't get released, but there was a couple of them for sure.
Got it. So, Kevin, how has sharing your story publicly helped you heal?
Oof. So many of the things that I used to be nervous about talking about and the things that I had shame around and my insecurities now I'm not insecure about them at all because I've talked about them so much. We were on a podcast one time with her name's Tori Leto. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I was talking about how I was working through an addiction to porn. And after the episode, Alan, my business partner, said, dude, I can't believe you said that. I can't believe you just outed yourself. And I said, dude, you know how many men I've met who will not admit that they have a porn addiction, but they do? There's two types of men. Men who admit they watch porn and men who lie and say that they don't. Statistically, most people at some point do. And oftentimes it becomes a problem. I have a very firm belief that I will get punches on one cheek and kisses on the other. And I've been saying that from the beginning. The kisses on the left cheek matter more to me. So it has helped me become more confident. It's helped me have more self-worth. And I think it's helped me help people. Yeah, I could sit up here and talk about how amazing things are, but it doesn't matter. That's not even what matters. What matters is what I'm still working through in order to maintain the amazing quote-unquote things we have going on. So yeah, I think it's helped me connect with people at a very human level. It is normalized whatever it is that I've gone through that other people are going through. And I think it's actually given permission to people to be able to work through their stuff. And it's helped me. I'm just way more confident now. Is somebody going to reach out and say, oh, wow, you're soft because you grew up without your dad? Whatever. If that's what you want to waste your time doing, feel free. But that says way more about you than it does about me.
Yeah. Kevin, what's one thing you wish more men knew?
Vulnerability is strength. You probably are not crying enough. I bet money on it that most men are not crying enough. I love a good cry. And your partner probably wants you to ask for help more than you are, whether you're in a heterosexual relationship or not a heterosexual relationship. Your partner probably wants you to ask for help more, but we're convinced that that's weakness. And I don't think so. There's a drastic difference between weakness and connection. That I wish more men knew that, because that's something that took me 30 years to learn that.
And if there's any young men out there growing up right now without a dad in their life, is there anything you would like them to hear?
Two things. One, that does not mean anything about you. That does not mean anything about your trajectory, and it does not mean anything about what you're capable of. I mean, you are capable of anything that anybody else is, quite literally, and maybe even more because you have more fuel in the tank. That would be one. And then two, and this is just a personal one, don't assume because you grew up without a dad that you have to be the dad that you didn't have. I've gotten that question a lot of what is it going to be like when you have kids? I'm not having kids. I'm not planning on having children. What this business and what this journey is going to take of me, I don't think it would be fair to have children based on the amount of time I have. Maybe it will adopt later, but that was something I had to let go of because I think that for me came from a place of ego. I'll show him by being the best dad I can be. If that's you out there and that resonates, do it. But for me, that was more of a wound, I think, than anything else. So I would say really sit with that and see what the truth is. See what the truth is. I thought I was going to put my dad to shame by being a dad, and then eventually it got to the place where it was it's not fair to bring someone in so I can do that. That's not fair. That's ego. So I let that go. I'm not saying you have to if you're out there, but I'd say explore it. I think exploring it's probably a constructive thing for everyone.
Cool. Yeah, you recognize you're setting yourself with this competition that would involve another person.
Yeah.
Necessarily their best good or anything. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's I'm going to have a child so I can prove to my dad who's never going to see that I'm a great dad. What are we doing here?
Awesome. So, Kevin, what's the best way for people to connect with you and discover everything that you offer?
The podcast is called Next Level University. We do an episode every day. You can get a little bit better every day. That's kind of our thesis. So we're on all the podcast platforms. We're on YouTube. My email is kevin@nextleveluniverse.com. I do my own emails. If you want to vulnerably share, I got you. I'll keep it private, I promise. And then my handle on Instagram is @NeverQuitKid. podcast content, fitness content, whatever you're looking for. I'm probably going to post something like that on my Instagram.
Well, Kevin, it was great to finally connect. We're close physically, and we've had lots of near misses for connecting. And I just really appreciate everything you're doing for yourself and for everyone else. Because one thing that I didn't grow up ever knowing was part of self-worth is being of service. And that really fuels self-worth.
100%. 100%. Thank you so very much for having me. Thank you for creating a safe space for men to share. And it takes two to tango. So I appreciate you being willing to dive into the depths with me today.
Awesome. Big thanks to Kevin for sharing his journey, lessons on self-worth, and the courage to talk about the father wound so openly. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to check out Kevin's Next Level University podcast for daily episodes on growth, mindset, and living a next level life. And remember, healing and self-worth don't happen in isolation. If you're ready to step out of the emotional closet and connect with other men who are doing the work, join us in the Authentic AF community at realmenfeel.org/group. And until next time, be good to yourself.